In this video, I will introduce Word and show you the different features on the Home tab. This is Word. It is a program used to type documents, any type of things like letters or papers or anything like that. This is your workspace. This area right here is called the ribbon, and the ribbon has tabs. It has a File tab, a Home tab, an Insert tab, a Design tab, and so forth. These areas right here, clipboard, font, paragraph, styles, editing, these are called groups. In this video, we're just going to talk about the Home tab. And I'll talk about each of the groups moving straight across from left to right. I have typed some garbage text into the workspace so that we have something to talk about. And to begin talking, I will talk about the clipboard right here. The clipboard allows me to copy and paste parts of the text or text in from different locations. So if I, for example, highlight the first sentence of text by holding down my mouse button and dragging across and down, that's highlighted. Now in the clipboard, I can cut. If I click cut, the text I highlighted just goes away. If I put my mouse here and click paste, the text that I highlighted earlier and cut reappears. It's pasted there. I can paste that as many times as I want to. If I drop down, I have different paste options. I can keep the source formatting. I can merge the formatting between the source and this destination, or I can just keep the text only. It's often very useful to keep the text because if you're pasting something from, say, for example, an internet page and the formatting is wonky, if you use the arrow to drop down and choose just keep the text only, then you just get the plain text without all the wonky formatting. So that can be very useful. And if I highlight if I don't want to cut, but I just want to copy it, I can click copy. It doesn't take the text from there, but when I come over here and click paste, it pastes it again there. So I have it in two different places. So that is what you need to know about the clipboard group. Let's go over and look at the font group now. This is probably the most important group on the Home tab. Once I have text typed in there, if I highlight some of it, I can drop down and see a variety of different fonts. And as I scroll through them, you can see the font or the text that I have highlighted shows me what it would look like if I chose that font. So I can choose any sort of weird font that I want. I'll choose this one for right now. Again, still if I have something highlighted, I can click here next to the name of the font and I can scroll up or down to make the font bigger or smaller. And again, as I scroll up and down, it previews and shows me how big it would be. So I know when it's the size that I want it to be. I know when to stop. Now, one of the things that confuses people is they think that you can only use these preset numbers. That's not true. If I want a huge font, I can click in there and choose 100 and get, or 200, type 200 in there and get absolutely enormous letters. Now, obviously, I don't want to do that. So whenever I do something and I want to undo it, if I click this undo arrow back there, it goes back to the last state. If I click it again, it keeps going through as many states as it remembers. If I go too far, I can click this button and I can redo. So suppose I want it to go back that far. Okay, so this is changing the font face. This is changing the font size. I can also change the font size one step at a time by using this up arrow or that down arrow. That moves it up or down one step. Okay, and let's move over to this particular button. With this button, I can change the case of the highlighted text. So I can automatically switch something over to all capital letters. Let me put that in a font where it's more obvious that it's all capital letters. I can automatically switch something over to all capital letters, or if I choose something, if I've copied something off of the internet and it's all in capital letters and I want it to just be regular, rather than having to retype it all, I can just choose lowercase. Or I can choose sentence case, and that will capitalize the first letter of each sentence. So that's really useful if you copy something off the internet or some other source and it's a weird case, you can just fix it quickly that way. Okay, now let's go to these three buttons. Again, if I have text highlighted, if I click the B, that makes my text bold. If I click the I, it makes it italics. If I click the U, it makes it underlined. And I can have any combination I want. I can take the italics out. I can take the underline out. And I can take the bold back out. So to put it in there, I highlight the text that I want to be bold. Maybe I just want this one word to be bold. And I click the B. And see when something is bold, this is not bold because that's not highlighted, but when I click here, the B is highlighted. So it shows me that that word is bold. And if I want it to not be bold, I can just highlight it again and click the B again. Okay, then you've got a couple of other funny little buttons right here. If I highlight something and I click the strike through button, it draws a line through there. You might be thinking to yourself, why on earth would I want to do that? Well, I might want to do it if I'm helping somebody edit their work and I want to mark out something that they've typed and type something else in there. Maybe it shouldn't have an E on there. So I can kind of use that as a sign to correct people. Okay. The next funny little button is the subscript. If I highlight something and click subscript, it makes the thing that I've highlighted subscript. Why would I want to do that? Suppose that I'm typing the formula H2O, the formula for water. Technically, that too is supposed to be a subscript. So that's how I can do that. Suppose that I wanted to say x squared. Let me go down to another line so that you can see that better. Suppose that I wanted to say x squared. This 2 is supposed to be a superscript. That's what the next little x is for. If you click on that, it makes that 2 a superscript. So if you're taking science or math classes, the subscript and the superscript might be important to you. Okay, now let's look at these last three remaining buttons right here. This one will transform your letters into whatever's pictured there. Usually that's better to do with some larger text. And the reason you might use something like that is if you're making a flyer and you want some of the text to stand out. And you'll notice that you can change your colors and your different effects right down here. Okay, moving along to the next button. Suppose that I wanted to call attention to this by highlighting it, like with a highlighter pen. I can highlight something and then click on the highlighter pen and put a color behind it. And I can choose different colors. Suppose that I want this to be highlighted green. If I click down, I can choose the green. And then this button right here changes the font color. Suppose I want all of this to be red. If I click down and choose red, now everything I highlighted is red font. Okay, so that is the font group. Let's go over to the paragraph group. In the paragraph group, I can put something with bullets. So if I have some text and I have hit enter and enter and enter, if I highlight these things and click the bullets, it will put in bullets. And if I drop down, I can choose fancy bullets if I want to. Okay, if I have some more text, like here and here and here, if I highlight that and I go to this button, I can make an ordered, what's called an ordered list, 1, 2, 3. And if I drop down, I can choose whether it's going to be 1 dot or 1 parentheses or Roman numerals or uppercase letters or whatever. And with this, the next button there, I can create an outline. So that might be useful if your teacher tells you that you need to create an outline. Okay, these next buttons down here will control what's called the justification of your paper. If I have a whole bunch of stuff highlighted, left justified is the default. It means everything lines up on this side. But if I click this one, then notice everything lines up on the right-hand side. Or if I click centered, then everything is centered. And sorry, there's one more before I move on. If I click this one, then everything will be fully justified, meaning it'll be even on both sides, like newspaper print. Okay, now moving on to this one. This is where you control your spacing. So if your teacher tells you your paper has to be double spaced, you would go here and you would choose the 2. You'll get a lot of that. Okay. Now let's talk about the styles group. The styles group can be really helpful. If you're typing a paper or making a flyer or something like that, and you want to use some predefined styles, then this is where you would pick them. Normal is what's always chosen by default. One of the things that can be annoying about the default is when you're typing along, it's actually half spaced, and sometimes you just want it to be real tight. If you want it to be real tight, choose no spacing as your style, and then that makes it 0 spacing, not half of a space. Suppose that I want this to be a heading. If I choose heading, then you see it automatically formats it blue and large. Suppose that I want this to be a subheading. If I choose that, it formats it in the same shade of blue, but a little bit smaller print. And suppose that I want this to be a subheading. If I choose that, you'll see it puts it in the same blue, but an even smaller print. And you can just keep on playing with these to see whether you get one that is the way you like it. Okay, last thing I'm going to do is talk about editing over here. Suppose you've got a big long paper and you need to find a certain word in it or all the instances of a word. If you click Find, it opens this up and it lets you search for words. Let's suppose that you've accidentally put 2016 into your paper and you meant to put 2017 in. If you click Replace, you can find all the instances of one thing and replace them automatically with something else. So it saves you having to find things all through the paper. Now when I click replace all, 2016 was never in this paper, so it's not there. So you're not going to see anything. And that is pretty much everything you need to know about the Home tab in Word.